Good morning.
Good morning.
Our chalice lighting comes from Reverend Christian Schmidt and Alexis Kappen. We light this chalice for our children and youth and for us, celebrating the flame of faith lit in each of us, honoring the light each of us bring into the world, rejoicing in the community we create together.
We open our service this morning with words by Jules Jaramillo. This morning, we gather together to worship as a community of all ages. Let us take a moment to look around at those of us sharing this sacred space. Let us recognize the hearts of our whole community, from our elders to our youngest and everyone in between. Let us embody the beauty of this whole church community, even when there are a few more giggles and wiggles and chatter. Let us remind ourselves to listen carefully, calming our bodies and minds. Begin by breathing peace and joy into this sacred space with 3 breaths. Know you are surrounded by the love of this community where all are welcome. Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. My name is Birch Spick. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs, and I am this congregation's Faith Formation and Congregational Life Coordinator. Today, we gather to continue celebrating the start of our year here in this congregation together. Last week, we held our water communion ceremony, welcoming us all back together into this house of possibility. And this morning, we look forward to the beginning of our year of faith formation together. This morning, we look at what it means to form our faith and the role that strong community has in doing this. As we begin this service, let's stop to acknowledge the Indigenous land we occupy, no matter where or how we gather. The building that this congregation stands on is in the traditional homeland of the Bajoje people, known also as the Iowa, who now primarily live in the states of Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma. This is also in the homeland of the Meskwaki and Sauk peoples who still live in our state. Whenever you hear a land acknowledgement, consider donating even a small amount to an Indigenous cause, organization, or mutual aid project.
My name is Catherine Sutton. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a celebrant for this morning's service. Whether you are here for the hour, for a lifetime, or somewhere in between, thank you for joining us in this community that grows ethically and spiritually, serving justly and loving radically. This service is being recorded and will be available to view later on the church's website and YouTube page. If you are joining us by Zoom, feel free to keep your cameras on, but please keep your mics muted in consideration of one another. If you are joining us in person, children and families of all ages are welcome to stay for the whole service. In the back of the auditorium is our We Worship space, which families may use if their children need to move around during the service. Childcare is available for the littlest ones downstairs. After the service, join us for coffee and conversation in the gathering area outside the auditorium and for a forum at 11 a.m. in Edna Griffin Hall. Coming of age And YRUU, our high school youth program, will meet downstairs at 10:45. Next week, our new program for kindergartners through fifth graders will meet downstairs as well. Thank you for being here with us today. Our opening hymn is song number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me in the Gray Hymnal.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me that I might know your mind. I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
Each week, we celebrate that this community is an intergenerational one. We celebrate that no matter how old or young we are, we all have something to learn and grow in together. This is our time for all ages. This morning, we're talking about faith formation. Oftentimes when people talk about faith formation, they mean classes that help you grow and become a more thoughtful and caring person. You may also hear people call this religious education or Sunday school, because that's when it happens for many Unitarian Universalists and most Christians also. And those are good names for it because a lot of this learning happens in classes, but it also happens outside of classrooms and Sundays. It can happen when you're spending time with your friends and family, when you're reading or watching TV. It can happen anywhere, anytime. But what do you mean by that, you might ask? So I'll tell you. Let's look at these two words, faith and formation. Faith is when you believe something, even if you can't tell someone why immediately. Faith might be something you believe in that's so big you can't get your arms around it. One example of this might be our first principle. The first principle says we believe everyone, everywhere, has worth and dignity. They deserve to be treated well. You might believe that, but you might not be able to tell someone why you believe that or how you know it to be true right off the top of your head. You just know it in your gut. That's what we mean by faith. Now, formation is maybe another tricky word, and it might seem like a mouthful to some. But the most important part of this word is form. That's a big clue to what this word means. When you form something, you're shaping or molding it like a piece of clay or Play-Doh. So formation is just a word that says you're doing that over and over and over again. You're forming something, you're shaping it and pinching it and rolling it out and crumpling it back up again. When we put these two words together, faith and formation, it says a lot about us as Unitarian Universalists. We take our faith, the big things we believe in, and we're always forming it. If our faith is a piece of Play-Doh, then we're always turning it out, rolling it over, pinching it up. We do this with the things we believe in. We look carefully at them again and again and again. We believe that we ask lots of questions about this thing, this piece of faith, this thing we believe in. We ask questions over and over and over and try hard to find answers. As Unitarian Universalists, we're doing this all the time, not just in church and not just in class. And we can't do it alone either. Our friends, our families, and our teachers all help us to do this. So I'm glad that you came here today so we can continue forming our faith together. Thank you for being here. We make our journey together in this community of meaning, fostering one another's growth through services, classes, and community. So many of us pour our time and talent into making our life together. This is possible also through financial giving. Our pledges and donations support the work of this congregation in nourishing our lives, and our Sunday donations support the work of nurturing our values. So in this offering, let us be grateful for all that we have and all that we can give. Half of today's offering goes to our congregation's social justice work, and half will be split with our Faith in Action partners this year, Hawthorne Hill and Let's Talk, so that they might continue their work in our communities. For those of you joining us by Zoom, we encourage you to use the giving page on the church's website, and you'll also find a link to that posted in the chat. In the middle of this hour, in the middle of our lives, we make time for stillness. Let us enter into this time of meditation, thought, or prayer. To begin, set your body comfortably, stably. Rest your hands in your lap, at your sides, or however you can rest them without straining. Straighten your back as much as you can without straining. Close your eyes if that helps you find your center. Now clench all of your muscles. Start with your fingers and toes, then your arms and legs, then your shoulders, your neck, your jaw. Now relax. Clench your muscles again and relax. Feel how that makes your body feel. Breathe in deep, slow, down into your belly, deep and steady. Breathe out slowly. Breathe in, breathe out, deep and steady. We will meditate like this for 1 minute.
Good morning. My name is Gene McCracken, he, him, his. I was thinking as Birch was talking, I thought about it actually yesterday. A friend of mine a number of years ago used to bring his grandson to First Unitarian sometimes. And he was telling me over coffee one time that one of his grandson's favorite things about coming to services was joys and concerns. And I said, well, he's never heard me do them, has he? I didn't say that. I didn't know I was going to be doing this today. And so Dick said, yeah, he said, Grandpa, that's when I understand more about what's important to adults. So I thought of that with your faith formation message. So in this congregation, we gather each Sunday to attend to joys and concerns of one another, whatever they may be in our lives. As a member of your pastoral care team, I have these joys and sorrows to share this week. Long-term member Pat Winters has recently moved to her son's home in Portland, Oregon, and will be close to her grandchildren who also live in the area. We will have a memorial service for Roger Evans on October 15th, a Saturday, at 2 p.m. I have a joy. I was here for a wonderful celebration of life yesterday afternoon, and I met a new member, not a member of our church, a new member of our family. I met Margaret, AKA Margot Lemon, John and Anna Lemon's 3-month-old daughter, and granddaughter of Linda. And thank you. It's going. Go back to your notes, Jean. During this space, we also take time to lift up the names of people who we hold in our minds and hearts, and we can speak them aloud or silently. If you're joining us on Zoom and carrying some joy or concern this morning, you may share that in the chat box. Thank you. Let our hearts also be with those near and far, with the people the world over who are in need of care and who care for their communities, for people who work to meet the needs of others, for those speaking out against injustice, for frontline workers in healthcare and service industries, for families and communities grieving the loss of loved ones. May we bear witness to the atrocities that flash before our eyes with too much regularity. May we bear witness to the struggles to overcome the injustices around us. It's the tradition of this congregation to light 3 candles, one for the joys and that have been shared, one for the concerns, and one for all those that remain unspoken, but are present here in our hearts.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul.
Thank you, Jean, and the pastoral care team for Joys and Concerns. Our first reading is Gem Mining by Reverend Christopher Weiss. Hope I got that right. A few summers ago, my wife Suzanne and I took our son Christopher gem mining in the mountains of North Carolina. We mounted a pile of mud and dirt, got a sifter, and began sifting through the soil in search of treasure. Liberal religious education is like gem mining. In a Unitarian Universalist Sunday school, we endeavor to teach our children discernment. The word discernment comes from the Latin word discernere, which means to separate, to distinguish, to sort out. In other words, we try to teach our children how to be gem miners. The process of gem mining is simple. You take some dirt, place it into a strainer, run creek water through it, and sift until you find a gem. Liberal religious gem mining requires the ability to discern what is worth keeping and what should be sifted out and discarded. This can be difficult. Our children have to sift through lots of information in life. Our children have to sift through, they learn values from television, popular music, the internet, books, magazines, their friends, and many other sources. We can't even know all the messages they are exposed to on a regular basis. We cannot shelter our children forever, but we can teach them the process of discernment and the art of gem mining. We can help to awaken the conscious so that they will be able to make responsible choices to separate things of value from things that have no value. At some point, we must open the door and lead our children into the world and speak the words to them that tradition says God spoke to the children of Israel. I have set before you life and death, a blessing and a curse. Therefore, choose life. Our special music this morning is from the UU Ringers, Celebration Journey by Michael Mazzatenta. That was wonderful. Thank you. Our second reading this morning is We Are a Community by the late Elandria Williams, who served as co-moderator of the Unitarian Universalist Association. The history and legacy of Unitarian Universalism are shaped as much by Emerson, Foz, and Channing as it is by the ancestors in our congregations. We come to it through different avenues: the internet, an invitation, reading the Transcendentalists, or as babies or little kids. I came as a fourth grader to my congregation, the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church in Knoxville, Tennessee. This community helped bring me into social justice struggles in the world around me and inside the UUA. They brought me as a child to the place where I now work, the Highlander Center. My church opened so many doors because they held young people in high esteem and encouraged our leadership in the church and community. I will never forget going to our district's Journey Toward Wholeness Transformation Team meeting, the UUA's anti-racism program, and realizing that I was the youngest person there by nearly 15 years. My religious education teachers, friends, parents, and spirit aunts and uncles were and still are community leaders in everything from nuclear disarmament to anti-racism, anti-oppression issues. They protested US military involvement in Central America and stood behind the parents of a classmate as she transitioned from male to female in the early 90s. They have been my inspiration as I work to support others who are called by their faith to change hearts, minds, and communities. My church changed forever. On July 27, 2008, when an armed man came into the sanctuary and killed 2 UU leaders, one a member of TV UUC and the other a member of Westside Church. This rocked our church to its core. When I first heard about it, I didn't know who had been killed: my mom, my friends, and their parents, or others who had nurtured me my entire life. I realized something that day that has stayed with me ever since. No matter what issues I have with other Unitarian Universalists regarding our visions of God or spirit, justice, race, and age, at the root of everything is community, love, and faith. That day, something larger than our individual beliefs rose up in my mind. I thought of the principles, values, and family that are the connective tissue of our faith community and that held us weeks after the shooting, 6 months later on our 60th anniversary, and still today. We are the children of freedom fighters, visionaries, and radical liberal theologians. We are the phoenix rising out of the ashes of the McCarthy era and the civil rights, women's, and queer liberation movements. We are the survivors and beneficiaries of youth-led and youth-focused beliefs and programming that encouraged us to be change makers, boundary pushers, and institutionalists at the same time. We are and will be the ministers, religious educators, congregational presidents, organizers, and social change leaders our faith has led us to be. We wear our faith as tattoos on our bodies and in our hearts as testaments to the blood, tears, dreams, and inspirations of our community ancestors and elders. Our centering song is hymn number 345, With Joy We Claim the Growing Light, in the Gray Hymnal.
With joy we claim the growing light.
Almost a month ago, I began this position as First Unitarian's Faith Formation and Congregational Life Coordinator, with a mouthful of a title and almost as big of a task ahead of me. Coming back to this congregational life in person, and after several months with no program coordinators on staff means there is a lot of work ahead of us. And I am very honored to be doing this work with all of you. This morning, I'm putting on one of my hats to talk about something we've called many names, which we currently call faith formation. I don't believe these are the best possible words that we can ever come up with to talk about this process of learning and growing together. But I do think they illustrate something meaningful about our tradition. In our children's chapel earlier this morning, I talked a little bit about this. And in this sermon, I will dig further into what it means for us to form our faith and why it's important. We form our faith, I believe, on at least two levels, the personal and the collective. When we talk about forming our faith, we talk about forming our own sense of the world as individuals and what we value. Here, we can also talk about supporting each other in this work. At this point, however, we can also begin to look into another level of forming our faith. We begin to talk about forming our living tradition, Unitarian Universalism itself, shaping and molding its present and future. That's the challenge and the great opportunity this tradition offers us, the chance to build it ourselves. No one hands us this faith as though handing over a box full of answers for us to sift through and incorporate into our lives. Instead, this tradition meets us with an open palm of possibility. It hands us the freedom and the responsibility to find our own answers to life's questions. This is what I think appeals to many newcomers in our tradition, and it's certainly been appealing to me. Looking back, my own childhood faith formation was very different, full of answers only loosely tied to questions. When I look at my own experience in confirmation, I remember our teacher presenting us with a very meat and potatoes, plain Jane vision of what it meant to be a Catholic adult. It was a presentation on what Catholics do, what Catholics believe, but without even much of an explanation as to why we do or should believe in these things. There was little talk about what's beautiful or nourishing, or even any warning about what would happen if we don't do or believe what we're supposed to. Instead, our teacher and community expected we would be Catholic because our parents were Catholic and our grandparents and so many other generations before us. What else could we possibly do or become? Then why would we want to be anything else? At this point in my life, though, I had questions these answers didn't satisfy. I was already questioning my commitments to Christianity and its God, and I had found many of my answers in paganism. But I didn't find answers to all of my questions, namely, where am I going to grow in the presence of others? That's what led me here. I remember standing here in this very church, out at our brochure rack, browsing through as a teenager after a music recital. I was reading about the home people of different faith backgrounds had found in Unitarian Universalism. I was incredibly impressed by the portrait this little brochure painted of our tradition. It said, "This is where question askers of all kinds and backgrounds come together to find and help each other find their answers. That thread running through our tradition is ultimately why I'm a Unitarian Universalist. I have found something deeply nourishing about the process of forming our individual and collective faith in the company of peers. In a place where it seems like no one and everyone is an expert and an answer holder. No one has all the answers, and everyone has some, and everyone also has an abundance of questions. My first real encounter with this was with my college congregation's young adult group, where we gathered every Sunday over lunch and spent time sharing and learning from each other's viewpoints and experiences. Outside of a few deeper conversations with childhood friends, I had never encountered a place where we could just be, learning from one another. My appreciation for how our tradition forms faith continued to deepen when I mentored a youth in that congregation's coming of age program. Through coming of age, our tradition asks, what does it mean to be an adult in this community? And it answers that question by telling our youth, find out for yourself. It was so moving to be a young adult companioning the young people, the future adults of our tradition, as they find their own answers to life's big questions. Questions like, is there something bigger and deeper in the universe than us humans? Does something happen to us after we die? What does it mean to be a good person? And why is that important? It has been so moving to see the promise of our tradition in action. In this tradition, we form our faith, our sense of the world and our values with the support and guidance of one another. This is the personal or interpersonal dimension of faith formation. It stands on its own as something valuable and important. We have to have our own frameworks and foundations before we turn to building something bigger together. And when we continue developing these foundations for long enough, this process leads us to the collective sense of forming our faith. We form this faith, this tradition, Unitarian Universalism, together through all of our own development. It is the sum of all our questions and answers. And I see this most clearly in the faith formation programming we offer our children and our youth. This is the programming we offer so that the future adults of our world will love to ask questions and seek answers as much as we do. That they will not be content to have the answers handed to them without reason or question. I have heard many people in this place call children and their families the future of our community. These young ones here among us today will be the future leaders of our world. And with all of our care and support, they will grow up to be the leaders of our tradition as well. If they are the future of Unitarian Universalism, it is because we expect that they will stick around for it as adults. As the adults of our present tradition, we have to do what we can to encourage that here and now. We can't just assume that our children and youth will grow up and remain in our tradition without our guidance or support. If we are here, if we are to believe that these children and families among us are our future, we have to show them how much we care about that future. We need to be here for them. A couple of days ago, I was talking with one of our teachers, someone I and many of us look up to as an expert educator in this congregation. And with heavy hearts, we realized that we would not have the support we need to offer our congregation's sex education program for middle schoolers this year. After weeks of asking the people in our congregation who were certified to teach this class, we don't have enough teachers available to facilitate it. Instead, we will spend this year regrouping and planning to offer OWL again in 2023. Meanwhile, we will continue looking for teachers to work with our other age groups, building and rebuilding the faith formation of this tradition, this congregation. I tell you this to highlight the urgency of our situation and to invite all of you, all of us, to live into our values. We find ourselves at a juncture in our congregation's life, shaken by change and encouraged by the possibilities ahead of us. It's time to tend to those possibilities now. If you felt anxious about the future of our congregation, you or someone next to you may have said, "We need more kids in this congregation." And if you've said, "We need more kids in this congregation," and you don't have kids in classes, and you're not already providing faith formation as a teacher, this is your call. This is your call to care for the future of our congregation right now. We don't need adults who are perfect or who have advanced degrees in education or child psychology. We don't even need adults with a spotless, empty plate, because really, who among us is that? More than anything, we need adults that care about our children, our families, our future. This is also what it means to form our faith, to care, to nurture its future and all its possibilities.
We extinguish this chalice and carry our light out. Let me start that over. We extinguish this chalice and carry its light out into our lives and our wider world as we continue to form our living faith. Our closing hymn is number 301, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky, in the gray hymnal. We will sing the first 3 verses only.
Touch the earth, reach the sky, walk on shores while spirits fly, over the ocean, over the land, a faithful quest to understand. Touch the earth, reach the sky, children ask the reasons why, in our lives the answers show, and by our love they learn and grow. Touch the earth, reach the sky, all are born and all shall die. Life's a time left in between, to follow a star, to build a dream.
We seekers are on a quest to discover truth and meaning. Sometimes we think we've found it, wrapped up, glimmering with newness, straight off the intellectual assembly line. All the answers right here for us and others if they'd only listen. But truth has a way of coming in disguise, sometimes wearing rags and sometimes finery, but so often cloaked from our immediate sight. And sometimes that which we have rejected, that which we have let go of or decided was only for others, but not for us, can be our teacher. Let our time together be an acknowledgement of the never-ending journey toward truth and meaning, and our appreciation of those we learn from along the way. This service has ended, and our service in the wider world to one another continues. Peace, amen, and so may it be.